I've been a mechanic for most of my adult life. And if there's one thing years in a garage teach you, it's this. The cars that matter the most are never the ones people admire. They're not the classics, not the restorations, not the brand new vehicles that smell like money and attention. The ones that stay with you are the ordinary ones. The vehicles that blend into people's lives so completely that no one ever stops to ask where they came from or what they've carried. That Chevrolet Suburban was exactly that kind of vehicle. And when it first pulled into my shop, I had no idea it would change the way I look at my work forever. The Suburban didn't announce itself. The paint was tired, sun faded in uneven patches, the chrome dull and worn down by years of weather. The interior smelled like old fabric, plastic that had been heated and cooled 1,000 times. And something else you can't really describe unless you spend your life around old vehicles. It smelled like time. The family told me it had always been reliable, always there, always part of their routine. That it used to belong to the grandfather, who bought it used decades ago and never really talked about it. That alone wasn't strange. People don't talk about cars the way they used to. They just use them, wear them down, and move on. They said the Suburban had started making a vibration. Low, subtle, easy to ignore at first. Then came a metallic sound, hollow, like something tapping from deep inside the vehicle. They weren't panicked. They weren't afraid. They just wanted it checked. That's how most of these stories begin. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, just a small discomfort that refuses to disappear. I took it for a drive, just around the block, nothing fancy. Within minutes, I felt it. Not through my hands, not through the steering wheel, but through my body. A vibration that didn't feel mechanical. It wasn't random. It had weight, timing, almost like something shifting where it shouldn't. I remember slowing down and thinking that the sound didn't behave like worn parts do. Worn parts are chaotic. This wasn't chaos. This felt contained, controlled. That's when I knew I needed to look underneath. Back at the shop, I didn't explain much. I lifted the Suburban and started inspecting the underbody. Years of dirt and grease covered everything. The kind of buildup you only get from decades on the road. And then I saw it, a weld line across part of the floor pan near the rear passenger area. Old, uneven, poorly finished, hidden deliberately beneath layers of grime. It wasn't factory. It wasn't professional repair work either. It was the kind of weld someone does when they're trying to close something quickly and permanently, without caring how it looks. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in years. Mechanics develop instincts, and those instincts don't scream. They whisper. And that weld was whispering something I didn't want to hear. I asked the family how long they'd had the Suburban, whether it had ever been in a serious accident, if anyone had modified the floor. Their answers were honest, but they didn't match what I was seeing. That's when I said it out loud, carefully choosing my words. I told them that what I was looking at wasn't a repair. It was a seal, and whatever was sealed inside hadn't been meant to be found. That was the moment everything changed. The Suburban stopped being just an old family SUV. It became a question, a wait, a silence that had lasted far too long. I've learned over the years that once you notice something that shouldn't be there, you can't unsee it. That weld stayed in my mind long after the Suburban was lowered back onto the ground. I tried to act normal, to keep my voice steady when I spoke to the family. But inside, something had shifted. There was a heaviness I couldn't shake. Not fear exactly, more like respect for whatever story had been buried beneath that metal. They told me the grandfather bought the Suburban back in the early 90s. Used, cheap, no questions asked. He drove it for years without ever modifying it, never letting anyone else work on it. When he passed, the vehicle stayed in the family, moving from one generation to the next like an unspoken heirloom. No one argued over it. No one tried to sell it. It was just there, always ready, always dependable. That detail mattered more than they realized. That night, after closing the shop, I couldn't leave. I kept walking back to the Suburban, running my hand along the worn body panels, listening to the quiet ticking of metal cooling down. Cars talk when the shop goes silent. You just have to know how to listen. And this one wasn't finished talking. I decided to open the sealed section, but I knew better than to rush it. Whatever was inside had waited decades. It could wait one more night. The next morning, I worked alone. No radio, no distractions. I removed the seats carefully, peeled back the carpet, and exposed the metal floor. The weld line was even clearer from above. Whoever had done it hadn't been a mechanic. The cuts were uneven, the measurements rushed. This wasn't about craftsmanship. It was about urgency, about hiding something fast before anyone could stop them. When I finally cut through the weld, the smell hit me first. Not rot, not fuel, something older, dry, like paper and dust sealed away from air for too long. Inside the cavity, wrapped in layers of oilcloth and yellowed plastic, were objects that didn't belong in a family vehicle. Stacks of old envelopes, photographs, a heavy canvas pouch. Everything was packed with intention, not panic. This wasn't a crime of impulse. It was a decision. I sat there for a long time before touching anything else. My hands were shaking, and I didn't try to hide it. I rebuilt engines without blinking, but this wasn't mechanical anymore. This was personal. When I opened the pouch, I found medals. Military ones, carefully cleaned, carefully preserved. Alongside them were letters handwritten, dated decades ago. Letters never sent. Letters full of apologies, regret, and promises that never found their way to the people they were meant for. The photographs showed a younger version of the grandfather I'd only known through stories, standing beside men who never made it home, smiling in one picture, broken in another. And suddenly, the Suburban made sense. It wasn't just transportation. It was a container, a moving vault, a place where memories too heavy to keep in a house were carried instead. I realized then that the vibration I felt wasn't mechanical wear. It was imbalance. The weight of the past shifting every time the vehicle moved. Metal remembering what it was forced to hold. When the family returned later that day, I didn't show them everything at once. I started by telling them the truth. The Suburban had been carrying more than passengers. I watched their faces change as understanding slowly replaced confusion. When I placed the first letter on the workbench, the room went silent. Not awkward silence, reverent silence, the kind you give to something sacred. And that's when I understood something that changed me forever. Some vehicles aren't meant to be fixed quickly. They're meant to be understood. I didn't expect the truth to land the way it did. I thought there would be anger, maybe denial, maybe questions fired at me all at once. Instead, what filled the room was something heavier. Silence mixed with recognition, like pieces of a puzzle finally sliding into place after years of not knowing they were missing. The oldest son was the first to speak. His voice cracked when he said the letters sounded exactly like his grandfather. The way he apologized in them. The way he carried responsibility like a debt that could never be paid off. He said his grandfather never talked about the war. Not once. Not even on holidays. He would sit quietly, hands folded, eyes distant, as if part of him was still somewhere else. As more letters were read, the story became clearer. The medals weren't for bravery the way movies show it. They were for survival, for decisions made in moments where there were no good choices. One letter described a night patrol that went wrong. Another talked about a friend who didn't make it back. There were no graphic details, but the weight of the words told you everything you needed to know. This wasn't about glory. It was about living with what you did to stay alive. The daughter found a photograph tucked between two letters. It showed the Suburban itself, brand new at the time, parked outside a small dealership. On the back, written in faded ink were the words, "This is where I'll leave it." No explanation, just that. Suddenly, the vehicle wasn't just a container for memories. It was part of promise, a way of keeping the past close without letting it spill into the house, into the children's lives. I watched them connect these pieces, one by one. The way their grandfather insisted on driving on long trips. The way he'd stop suddenly on highways needing air. The way he'd never let the Suburban go, even when newer vehicles made more sense. That truck wasn't a burden to him. It was balance. It carried what he couldn't put down. That's when the vibration complaints finally made sense to me on a deeper level. Time had shifted the weight. Metal had weakened. The seal that kept the past quiet was failing. The Suburban wasn't breaking down. It was asking to be heard. We talked for a long time, not like customers and mechanic, but like people standing in front of something honest. They asked me what I thought they should do. I told them the only thing that felt right. Don't hide it again. Don't weld it shut. Let it breathe. Let it be what it is now. They decided to keep the letters together, to digitize them, to share parts of the story with the younger generation when the time felt right. The metals would go into a proper case, not locked away, respected. And the Suburban would stay in the family, but not as a vault anymore. As a reminder, when they left that day, the shop felt different, quieter, like something unfinished had finally been allowed to rest. I cleaned my tools slowly, thinking about how many vehicles I'd worked on without ever wondering what they were really carrying. Some cars hold groceries, some hold kids and road trips and memories you smile about, and some carry pain, loyalty, and promises made in silence. As mechanics, we fix what's broken, but every once in a while, a vehicle shows you that nothing was broken at all. It was just waiting for the right moment to be understood. After they drove away, the shop stayed quiet for a long time. Not the normal quiet you get at the end of the day, but the kind that lingers, like the air itself is still thinking about what just happened. I stood there looking at the empty space where the Suburban had been parked, realizing that something rare had passed through my hands. Not just a vehicle, but a story that had waited decades for the right moment to surface. I've worked on thousands of cars in my life. I've seen engines destroyed by neglect, frames bent by accidents, interiors worn down by time and kids, and spilled coffee. Most vehicles tell their story openly. Scratches, dents, noises, they don't hide who they are. But every once in a while, one comes along that carries its truth in silence. And when that truth finally comes out, it changes everyone who touches it. In the days that followed, I caught myself thinking about that grandfather, about the weight he carried without ever letting it spill into his family's lives. He didn't bury the past because he didn't care. He buried it because he did. He chose a machine strong enough to hold what his heart couldn't. And he trusted that someday, when the time was right, it would let go. That Suburban is probably still on the road, still carrying that family to birthdays, holidays, ordinary moments that matter more than we admit. But now it moves lighter, not because the metal changed, but because the story did. The past isn't gone. It's just been placed where it belongs. That experience changed the way I do my job. Now, when a customer tells me a noise doesn't feel mechanical, I listen differently. When a vibration doesn't show up on a diagnostic screen, I don't dismiss it right away. Because sometimes what's shaking isn't a part. It's a memory, a promise, a chapter that hasn't been read yet. If you're listening to this and thinking about a car you've held onto longer than you planned, maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's more than steel and rubber. Maybe it's been carrying something for you quietly, faithfully, waiting for the right moment to be understood. And as stories like this speak to you, stories about the hidden lives of ordinary vehicles and the people who trust them, stay here. There are more waiting to be told.